Hello and welcome to Irreverent. If you're confused about that music clip that you just heard, go listen to the second safety car special and see the irreparable brain damage that I managed to cause by sending that to Levi. Anyway, we're a couple days late. Several days late. We were supposed to do this on Wednesday. It is now Saturday. But that's mostly because there's a decent chance this ends up being our longest episode yet. Because just for Formula One, just for the race, I have 5 pages of notes. I was only paying attention to 4 drivers for these notes. And that is not at all to mention what happened at Martinsville. So, if we were to have recorded this yesterday, we probably wouldn't have stopped until today. So, here we are on a Saturday afternoon. So, as usual, I'm the host tonight, Levi, and Eli. See? Everything is so fried that I'm even forgetting who I am.
Maybe I am Levi, he says.
You know what? People call me it enough that at this point, I do answer to it.
What the heck? People call me Eli. Like, they completely get it reversed.
People call me Levi, they call me Elijah, they call me Elliot. So, like, if there is
do they
vaguely...
call you Elijah when... I was gonna say, do they call you Elijah when they want to feel like they, like, are really close to you? Like, they're like, I bet that's short for Elijah.
Oh, I had to fight teachers before that my real name was just Eli and not Elijah. But yeah, no, if the name has an E and an L in it, I probably will respond to it. But anyway, that's a whole different topic of discussion. I'm Eli, I think. And as usual, I'm joined by my co-host Levi. I promise that I will not abuse the fact that I have a music clip set up and ready to go in OBS too much. But without further ado, we have the penultimate round of NASCAR to talk about. And, it was quite a boring race, wasn't it?
Very boring.
Yeah, so let's just go ahead and breeze over that and get it out of the way real fast if you want.
Okay. Listeners, I'm sure you're wondering, is Levi Prime Levi tonight? Well, I can't make any promises, but let me fill you in. Today, on the way home, as usual, I live in Ohio, and I'm not going to say any direct streets because Luke is a creep and he might stalk me if I tell him exactly which streets I'm riding home at, home to in the afternoon. Let's call them Street 1, Street 2. When I'm usually riding home on Street 1 and the light turns red by the railroad tracks on, Road 1, I will just turn right on the red because there is literally no traffic ever, and I just take Street 2 home. That's what I did today. The light turned red. I'm like, okay, don't have time to waste. I got a grocery pickup at Walmart. I got to get home. However, after I successfully merged onto Road 2, out of the corner of my peripheral eye, I thought I saw shoe boxes. And so, of course, because I'm the best driver in the world, I decided to take my eyes off the road and look to my right. And in that shoebox, I see a Jeff Gordon car. I realize that there is a man in this town selling off his NASCAR diecast collection. If you know how much of a toy lover I am, then you'll understand when I say I legit almost wrecked my car on the way home. And yes, I'm in possession of brand spanking new, merch. So, in case you're wondering if I'm in the mood tonight, I am very much in the mood. Because I'm a 5-year-old child, and the only way to get me in the mood to talk about anything is if you give me a shiny new toy. That's all I had to say. We can go on to F1 now.
Oh, wow, that was quite the summary. Martinsville must have been super dull.
It was, yeah. All right, no, jokes aside. I'm so excited I get to talk about another Blaney win, but also all of this nonsense from the perspective of a Blaney fan. Um, I almost don't know what to talk about first. Um, it's almost like I kind of want to get the backlash out of the way. I guess maybe I'll just start with the lead up to the race and the race itself, because the lead up to the race, honestly, I don't think there's ever been more confidence as a Blaney fan or the general public, like in my life, that Blaney was going to win this race. It was very obvious, like especially of how hard charging Blaney's been the past few weeks, that he definitely had the speed to repeat his Martinsville victory from last year. Um, and definitely when we got to Martinsville and he was one of the best cars, specifically on the long run, people were like, okay, he probably he's one of the top 3 drivers this weekend. People were like, going into the weekend, I know Hamlin was, I think, the favorite to win. If not Hamlin, Christopher Bell was high up there. But yeah, Ryan Blaney was right up there. No one would be surprised if Blaney went back to back in the Martinsville fall race to win his way into the championship four, because that's what Blaney has to do to win. That's what Blaney has to do. Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, all 3 of those drivers are in must-win situations. So the race begins, and I gotta be honest, I agree that with Goodyear bringing a brand new right front tire to Martinsville, this was the best next gen race at Martinsville. I'm not just going as a Blaney hype fan. It's a common opinion I've seen, and I tend to agree with it. Watching the race, I feel like people could actually pass, and the cars were stable enough where you could do bump and runs. Um, it was good old fashioned Martinsville. I'm gonna say this though. A lot of people say it's the best race in the next gen with an asterisk. It's not a good race, it's just a step in the right direction. I don't like that opinion. I'm very much willing to say it was a good race. I don't tend to go out of my way to watch Martinsville. If you know me, you know I kind of prefer to watch higher speed tracks. Which Martinsville very much not a high speed track. But and just racing quality, I'll tell you this, Eli. Denny Hamlin went from the dead last to, I think, side to side on the front row to a restart with Ryan Blaney after like 100. It was really soon after stage 2 started. Like we're like 150 laps in, and Denny Hamlin's already worked his way to the front. Like that's Generation 6 crap there. Like when I saw Denny Hamlin easily work his way through the field in a supposedly horrible short track car, I was thinking what everyone's thinking. I think like the right improvements are being made. Yes, Denny Hamlin's great at Martinsville. Yes, he's a Gibbs car. But a year ago, Denny would have been screwed. Like that would have been it. His race literally would have been over
For
because it would have taken him
reference,
all race long. What you say?
he finished stage 3 in third, or stage 2 in third.
Yeah. By the end of and that wasn't like by the beginning of stage 2, he was already competitive. He was ready to compete for the front. I love that. I love that we finally have found whatever amount of downforce ratio, whatever amount of um, horsepower and tire um, softness to make a good Martinsville race. Because I was aggravated. It was like a lot of people weren't even willing to say it was good. They're like, yeah, it was fine. It was a step in the right direction, but it definitely wasn't old Martinsville. Guys, for goodness sakes, everyone is victims of the moment. I'm going to tell you why you can trust me. I am very autistic about what I love. And I regularly go back and watch races from really any era. I am heavy Gen 4, Gen 6. Gen 5, the car of tomorrow, is whatever to me. I really like watching Gen 4 and Gen 6 races because Gen 4 is held up to such a high standard. And when you go back and watch Generation 4 races and kind of realize that people really do have a kind of a horrible sense of nostalgia, like a lot of Gen 4 races I watched were kind of bad. Like I remember watching the 2001 Coca-Cola 600 and just kind of not being very entertained. Guys, this was a great Martinsville race, and this is going to be one of the best Martinsville races as the years go on. People are going to love this race. And I think if they bring the same package to Martinsville and continue to try to make small improvements, I'm going to watch it. I think this is a perfectly fine short track car at Martinsville. Um, Can't sing the praises enough. I love seeing Denny Hamlin work his way. Honestly, shout out to Martin Truex, who I thought was going to do better than wherever he finished. He led the first 40 laps, but man, there were a lot of different lap leaders, weren't there? There was
24th.
24th. Yeah, that's. I feel bad
That is from pole.
because yeah, that was he just declared it. Yeah, it was a hard because I'm not a Truex fan, but Truex was one of the drivers who was hot when I first started watching NASCAR, and I would love nothing more than for Truex to go out with a win this year. But it was bittersweet because I probably wanted Blaney to win the race and get into the tire race and have Truex try to win Phoenix instead. But realistically, this was going to be Martin's best shot to win for the remainder of the year. And it was it was really disappointing to see him go out and just have such a horrible long run car. Because the end of the race was a really long run, and poor guy never really rebounded. Oh well, call him Elenium and John Bellion because good things fall apart. Anyway, what else should I talk about? Because I'm definitely saving the controversy for last. Oh, you know what, there's not a ton to say during the race besides maybe the fact that it was. I'm just going to point out this isn't like an official note or something people should like take seriously, but it was kind of funny to hear Jeff Burton kind of like knock constantly on Carson Hocevar during the race, because if the listener and Eli don't really know what Carson Hocevar is all about, um, let's just say his 2022 Truck Series, well, actually, his whole NASCAR career was kind of tainted by that year. He just constantly ran into people. He purposefully wrecked a few guys. He doesn't have a great wrap across the garage area. And in this race, there was a couple of times he was not good at bump and run, and there were 2 times he spun people out. It was Harrison Burton and Alex Bowman, I believe. And it was just kind of funny because Jeff Burton was kind of losing his mind in the booth, talking about how like this isn't acceptable in Cup, like people are going to pay him back. It's all true and stuff. I just wanted to say it was kind of funny because like I don't think Carson Hocevar is ever going to lose his seat at Spire. He's probably going to be fine, but it was just funny to me, like hearing Jeff kind of lose it a bit.
I mean, you can't keep a seat if you're dead.
True. Just ask Connor Jones. R.I.P. Rest in perfume and the lungs. I'll just stop.
I don't even know who that is to know where you were going with that.
He was the dude who wrecked the guy in the Truck Series so hard he had to go to the hospital.
Ow.
But yeah, I mean, it was an entertaining race. Not a huge amount of cautions. Like, this was an ideal fall race. So now that that's kind of made a point, and there wasn't really big notes for me in the race besides Denny Hamlin's comeback, and Brad Keselowski was kind of a dude this race. He had a good car. I'm going to talk about the final 100 laps. So the first 400 laps, nothing huge, nothing earth-shattering, besides the fact that I do think the recipe for a good Martinsville car was kind of found here. This is good. I'm happy with it. So the final 100 laps. Let me set the stage. So I do believe I forget who brought up the caution. Very sorry, listeners. I don't like research. Oh, it was Carson Hocevar. He got spun. He got spun by Alex Bowman. That's right. He got dumped. So Carson Hocevar gets dumped with like 110 laps to go. Brings out the caution. I believe Ryan Blaney is third at this point, and I'm gonna tell the story from the perspective of a Blaney fan. I want this to be authentic. So you Hendrick fans out there, now's a good time probably to skip forward to Eli's discussion because it's all gonna be me tongue bathing Penske at this point. 110 laps to go, so Carson Hocevar brings out that caution. The leaders come down pit road. Kyle Larson stays out. kind of a strategy. And I'm gonna say I liked Kyle Larson, or actually it was more like Cliff Daniels. Kyle Larson doesn't use his brain. Cliff Daniels' strategy to keep out Kyle Larson at that point in the race, because there had been enough cautions that Kyle Larson only had about 10, 20 extra laps on his tires, but with how many cautions we have been getting consistently, if I'm Cliff Daniels and I see like a little over 100 laps to go in the race, yeah, I'm going to keep my guy out. I'm sure in another 40 laps there'll be another caution probably. And if not, I believe my car is good enough to hold off everyone else. So
Are you
they all came
saying
out
that
pit
you can
road.
strategize around cautions?
Yes.
That comment will make more sense after the Formula One discussion.
Dang it, did Lando Norris say something again?
Continue.
Dang it. Um, so Cliff Daniels strategized around the caution. This will be important in another 60 laps. Blaney, as coming from the perspective of Blaney fan, Blaney doesn't have a good pit stop, guys. He drops to eighth. I think, like I said, I think he was running third. Great car all day, running eighth. But there's over 100 laps to go.
Is he the one that
If
had to
this
come
thing goes
back
long,
in because they didn't put the lug nut on to one of his tires?
no, that was, ooh, who was that? What that
I
happened to
remember in the
Kyle Larson
highlights
at
there were two
Vegas?
pit stops back to back. There was one where they had to come back in because they didn't put a lug nut on, and then there was another one where they almost hit the
Oh,
tire guy.
Christopher Bell. So Christopher Bell's team didn't. That was the lug nut, and Ryan Blaney was the one who almost hit the tire carrier.
Okay. I knew that he was
There
one
you
of
go.
those two. It's just in the highlights they showed them like right back to back, so I couldn't remember which one. And then you said he had a bad pit stop, so I figured it was one of those two.
It actually wasn't either. His crew was literally just had skill issues, and they had a 12-second pit stop. Sorry, Blaney's crew. We both know pit crews are the life and blood of a team, but it wasn't good. And Blaney was mired back to eighth place once again. Good long run car. As a Blaney fan, I had faith he could do it. It just needed to go long. If it didn't, Larson was probably gonna make me mad again. Um, so this is where the fun happens. Is NASCAR decides to get the field stacked and ready to go again. However, before the cars even take off, Kyle Busch loses a wheel, and they decide to yellow flag it. But get this, they're going to count it. So everyone who gained or lost positions, it's count. They didn't just decide to restart the race. They decided to make it a full green, yellow, green caution, and a lot of people were irritated with that. To me, it's whatever. I think by the time the flagman waved the green flag, it takes time to make a decision, and I'm sure there had to be about 10 seconds between NASCAR saying, "Oh," because I don't think that the flag guy can see Kyle Busch losing the tire. I think from his perspective, all he can see is a car is kind of getting out of line.
In
I
the
don't
highlights, it
mind.
very much looked like they were coming around the last corner when everything happened as he was preparing to wave the flag. So it's kind of a situation of, unless he has the authority to call off the race, that flag was getting flown.
Yeah, no, I don't mind at all. And even as a Blaney fan, I didn't mind it. Like, it was hilarious to hear Blaney's in-car radio, only because it wasn't happening to me. Because of that, Blaney lost 2 spots officially. So now Blaney was already in eighth. Now he's in 10th, restarting on the outside. And now, because of that full caution period, we only have a little more than 90 laps to go in this race. And the race, okay. Oh, and before I start, I didn't forget about the other playoff guys. So I'll give a rundown of the 8 playoff drivers and how this 90 laps is going to affect everybody, how the race has been going. Um, Logano, Reddick are locked in. Reddick has a horrible day. He's been in the garage at this point. Logano's been quiet, but a top 15 car all day. No reason to push it. You're already locked in. Um, then it's been a points battle all day between Kyle Larson, William Byron, and Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell came in 29 points to the good. However, because he was the one with the bad pit stop and he had been awful all day, he caused a caution earlier, self spun out caution. It was not a good day for the 20 car. Now he is, back in the pack, having to actually fight his way to the title race. Kyle Larson had a horrible Las Vegas and Homestead because, of course, Homestead was the skill issue. Did we? Oh, yeah, I already covered. So in the last episode, guys, I talked about how loud I yelled when Kyle Larson self-spun himself out at Homestead. I might, if I have enough voice at the end of the episode, I kind of want to, demonstrate how loud I was yelling. I was so excited. Anyway. But yeah, that's Kyle Larson, and William Byron has kind of been doing what he's done all, year in the playoffs. He's been really quiet, but solid. So it's a really tight battle with 90 laps to go. Race restarts. It's okay. Kyle Busch is okay. And, immediately Kyle Larson, Chase out on the front row. They start to pull away. 10 laps go by, 20 laps go by. Kyle Larson has built a 2-second lead over Chase Elliott. Their tires have evened out. There's about 70 laps to go, and honestly, I'm kind of just trying to mourn because I realized another Martinsville race won by Hendrick, and I am just feeling all 50 levels of sad because I wanted Blaine to win, but also it's just annoying. It's like Cliff Daniels is really good at his job, and it looks like when it matters most, he's going to do it. It was a great call. He deserves it, but I'm still upset. But also the fact that Hendrick's finishing 1-2 at Martinsville after going 1-2-3 in an obviously rigged race earlier this year, very upset. So another 10 laps go by. And we see that Blaney, of course, hasn't had a extraordinary short run car all day. 30 laps in, the long run car is starting to come into play here. About 60 laps to go. I think he's about up to 8th, and he's chasing down 7th place, whoever that may be at that point. I still don't think he has enough. Another 10 laps go by. About 50 laps to go. Oh, look at that. Blaney is now in 5th place. He's got another couple positions. Larson and Elliott are still in front. Denny Hamlin in 3rd, and his teammate Austin Cindric is in 4th. So as I'm thinking, okay, there's we got about 50 laps to go. If Austin Cindric can move behind, maybe there will be some level of a chance. 40 laps to go. That happens. Austin Cindric gives him the place. Now Kyle Larson. Okay, so we're starting to kind of get up on some lap traffic, but Larson is still definitely maintaining that lead. Christopher Bell, William Byron, Kyle Larson, they're still kind of in that points battle. Nothing much is happening. At this point, I think... Oh, actually, Larson is in, so I think Christopher Bell has a ever so slight edge on William Byron. Oh, wait a second, Eli. Byron was in 3rd place. It was going to be another Hendrick 1-2-3. That's why I was mourning. But Byron's car is visibly falling off after about 40 laps into this run. Oh, or I'm on lap 50. Yeah, around 40-50. He's visibly falling off, very much slower than everyone behind him. All the good cars, at least. Hamlin was in 5th. That was my bad. But Blaine does pass Hamlin for 5th, passes Cindric for 4th. We're at the point where, lap traffic is starting to become a bit of a sitch. 30 laps to go. Blaney has passed Byron. His car is obviously much better. And Blaney is charging. So about 40 laps to go. Kyle Larson has a 5-second lead over Blaney. Blaney is chipping away at least a 10th a lap on our leaders, who are getting a little caught up in traffic. And 30 laps to go is when the magic begins to happen. So 25 laps to go. No, it is 18 laps to go. This is when it happens. We see that Chase Elliott has finally passed Kyle Larson, because Chase Elliott has to win himself. Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney must win situations. Chase has to win to get in. He finally is able to pass Larson. Larson puts up a bit of a fight, nothing much. And about a lap later, we see Blaney, who has closed in on these guys, who has eaten up all 5 seconds of that lead in about 20 laps. Man, how much is that a lap he gained on those guys? It was a lot, man. Like, Blaney's car was locked in. And you could tell it was fun watching because Blaney may didn't have the best exit speed, but Blaney's entry was unbeatable into these Martinsville corners. Really amazing on the brakes all day. And because Elliott was able to get past Larson, that did about a lap later open the door for Blaney, who executed an amazing pass into turn 3 and 4. He got his lefts got on the curb to pass Larson. No, it wasn't the cleanest pass, and I got so nervous because after that, um, next lap, turns 1-2, Larson puts the bumper to Blaney, get him back. It was so amazing though because Blaney somehow held onto the car and was able to pass him back on the outside. Like that was a Superman move. So Blaney like gives Larson plenty of dust to eat, starts chasing, well, Chase Elliott. And yeah, you can just visibly see on the screen the gap closing. Blaney has a much better car, and I can't believe this is happening. You know, by lap 40, I was still thinking this was an impossible. Hendrick was going to make me red hot angry again. Here's Blaney. You know, 15 laps to go. He has plenty of time to get this spot. And sure enough, 2 laps later on lap 13, he gets it done. Elliott, not even close. Blaney's car is the best long run car here. This is exactly what he needed. And Blaney is now in the lead, laps winding down. And what's funny is I promise this is not a hindsight 2020 moment. If you want to believe it, okay, but it was I think more the word was aggravating, not maybe suspicious. William Byron's car was not good at the end of this run, and he was fourth, fifth, something like that. I think Denny Hamlin eventually passed him. He was in fifth.
Yeah, well, Denny Hamlin passed him for 5th, causing Byron to fall to 6th.
Yep. So, and at this point, William Byron is barely, and I mean barely, like 1 or 2. It's like 1 point ahead of Christopher Bell to to complete the final 4. Ross Chastain and Austin Dillon are the cars in pursuit of William Byron, or seemingly in pursuit. Watching them, it was weird because Brad Keselowski in that King's Hawaiian Ford, a few spots behind Byron, was very much the fastest car of those 4 cars that were caught up behind Byron, and couldn't get past it because Chastain and Dillon were seemingly unable to get past Byron or each other. Every time one would get a good run, it seemed like, strangely enough, one of the other ones would side draft them down the straightaway. And then you remember this is Martinsville and you can't side draft. And we'll get into that in a second, but for some reason, Byron cannot get past. And he gets, he has that point over Bell to get into Phoenix. So 1 lap to go. Blaney is far and away ahead. He's going to win this race. As a Blaney fan, can't believe it. This is a dream come true. 11 wins for Ford on the year. Blaney is going to join Logano in Phoenix. 2 Penske cars, clutch when it mattered most. And then we get a fail melon. Final corners of the race. Blaney has won. Byron is seemingly in until the last corner where, oh, and by the way, we get a radio message about a lap earlier from Bo Wallace saying he thinks the tire is going down. He is slowing way down. You got to conserve that tire, man. You don't want that thing to go down. And because of that, Christopher Bell is able to catch up, drives it in deep into turn 3 of Martinsville, hits the wall, gasses it up, rides the wall, gets that point. Bell is going to Phoenix in a tiebreaker because he had the best finish in the round of 8 against Byron. So your championship 4 is set. We got Blaney, Logano, Reddick, and Bell.
It is worth noting at this point that Bubba Wallace, you could not see a flat.
The reason, Eli, is because his tire was going down. He didn't say it was down. It was totally going down.
I just wanted to make sure we didn't gloss over the fact that as much as he was going the speed you would expect if you were losing a tire, he was not actually driving like it.
Guys, it's okay. I am totally just being a tease. We read the penalties. We know what happened. But yeah, for some reason, A, you're able to side draft at Martinsville. B, the tire isn't going down. Bell wall rides turn 4, not turn 3, but turn 4, gets into Phoenix. Game over. No. first of all, Blaney gets out like a madman. It's awesome to see. I love it when Blaney's fired up. Um, but NASCAR says, wait a second. Bell technically rode the wall there because when he got the wall, he didn't just get off. He gassed it up, rode the wall in turn 4. And for 30 minutes, we have to wait to see, wait a second, is Bell in or is that a safety issue and Byron gets in because Bell is DQ'd? So we wait around for 30 minutes. And guys, I want to say about these 30 minutes.
Can I just say?
Oh, go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, I just want to point out, I watched the highlights without actually following anything about the race, so I didn't know what the end result of this was, but the fact that they took half an hour to figure out whether or not that move was intentional to try and take advantage of the wall ride, when he very obviously starts going faster after he makes contact with the wall.
Yeah. What do you do? Was I gonna say, where was I?
You were at the end of the half-hour wait.
I was gonna say, okay, I don't want to say I didn't mind the wait. I loved how tense everything got when you were waiting. I love the fact that we didn't just know who was going to the championship for immediately. I don't know, that was just me, guys. I really liked it. I loved the tension. People were making, literally everybody was making such a big deal about the wait and how horrible it is. And
You want to talk about waiting for stewarding decisions? Trust me, half an hour is nothing.
I literally did not care that I had to wait a half hour to find out who was going to Phoenix. It made everything more dramatic, and I liked it. A lot of people just can't stand anything.
To be fair, if he hadn't got a penalty for it, it would have been bull.
True. Yeah, and looking back, there was a lot of talk about Hendrick favoritism, but I liked that NASCAR just kind of dug their heels in the ground and said, no, we understand why he didn't get off the wall, but a wall ride is a wall ride.
Yep.
So, yeah, I personally was very okay with that decision.
We've not actually said what the decision was yet.
Oh, okay, that's where I was. Okay. And so, yeah, after 30 minutes, it's finally decided. Bell rode the wall. A wall ride was a wall ride to NASCAR. It was still a safety violation. Byron's going to Phoenix. And of course, that's when the Hendrick favoritism thing comes in, yada yada yada. And of course, Elton Sawyer came out, the day after and was like, we were very aware because everyone was aware of the suspicion of Bubba Wallace and the number 1 and 3 cars of potentially cheating. And I liked Elton Sawyer's response where he's like, we saw it, but the thing is, we literally have to launch an investigation for that stuff. We simply made a decision based on the black and white in that moment. And I like that. Like, that's what kind of I felt like what they needed to do was the wall ride was the only thing they had a definite law about and had definite, proof about. They made a decision based on that, and I like that.
Everything else is this is going to take months.
What do you say?
Everything else is like, this is going to take months, and we can probably only figure it out if we can get access to the team's emails from before the race for manufacturer conspiracies.
Yeah, and
because that's something we did gloss over. These drivers weren't on the same teams.
Yeah, it was manufacturers. So the number 3 and 1 are Hendrick aligned Chevrolet teams, but they're not with Hendrick. They are not Hendrick Motorsports. And Bubba Wallace, driver of the number 2311 car, his owner is Denny Hamlin, who is a Joe Gibbs racing driver, so they are very much aligned. But penalties were awarded Tuesday. Do you see that, Eli, that the penalties were given?
The only penalty I knew about was Bell's.
Oh, okay. Well, the decision was really quickly made on Tuesday. They did not find anything to suggest that a tire was going down on Bubba Wallace's car. And because there was a lot of radio chatter on the 3-1 that was suspicious enough for NASCAR, because the Austin Dillon's crew chief asked him if he knew the deal.
Oh, yeah, I remember. The thing is, they highlight in the highlights. They specifically bring that part out.
So, you know what? I agree with NASCAR. So they all handed them like $100,000 penalties, 50-point penalties. It was penalties everywhere because they could, all but confirm that they had purposefully slowed down to get these cars to pass. And if you're wondering why if you're a Formula One fan wondering why that's such a bad thing in NASCAR, it's simply because of the 100% rule. NASCAR mandates that all their drivers give 100% all the time, so as to not compromise the integrity of the race and the results. And the three cars technically violate those rules. So there you go. That's why NASCAR gave a crap in the first place. And also, if you want to do even more research for extra cookie points or brownie points, look up Spingate 2013, and that's why the rule came into place.
Well, there's
So,
also the whole fact that at a certain point they were actively blocking both lanes, making it impossible to go around.
that's yeah. That coming from the eyes of a Ford fan, I would have loved to see what Keselowski could have done with a few more laps, because Keselowski did have a really good car, but there you go. A lot of drama, controversy, and that's kind of what started the uproar about. Brad Keselowski was like, "This is why the playoffs need to die."
Can I
All
just
this and that.
say, I love the boldness of this cheating. Just between you know what the deal we made is over the radio, which is just public, and I've got a tire going down, while not counter steering to counteract that, and also the fact that the tire manufacturer gets the tires to inspect after the race. It's just
I
beautiful.
I watched. I was gonna say I watched a YouTube video, and it was talking about like, this just tells me that NASCAR doesn't take, or the drivers and teams don't take NASCAR officiating seriously. And I think that's kind of what it is because if they did, none of this would have happened.
What's funny is, if you're wondering how I know that what's his face was not counter steering Bubba Wallace, it's because the highlights editor was having so much fun. Because while that radio message was being played, they cut to his in-car view showing his steering wheel.
Uh
So you can see that he's just driving perfectly normally at a third the speed.
uh you gotta admit, NASCAR's video editors are pretty good.
Just like so much of the thing is just like, here's the radio message. Also, here's the blatant cheating that they're doing with that radio message.
Yeah, I think NASCAR did a lot of good officiating this weekend, and amount of time it took and everything. It was a lot of the right calls. Um, so yeah, there you go. There's your championship four: is Bell, my God, Blaney, Logano, Reddick, and Myron. And of course, we do need to discuss the uproar about the playoff system, and this has all started because of the playoff system. I Did you have things to say about this? You said, Eli.
Yeah, just you can go ahead and give your defense of the playoffs before I speak.
Literally nothing is going to stop cheating. You can change the playoffs if you want. Nothing's going to stop cheating because Bengate happened before this playoff system and before the chase format. You can be darn sure there was cheating that NASCAR didn't catch. That's all I gotta say. Changing the playoffs won't fix anything.
So, I feel like this is the part where I should say something. As the person who is noted for being vocally against the concept of a playoff tournament in any sort of racing series that is not a time trial series, why in the world is this the race that people are choosing to die on? Because, like, the cheating would have happened anyway, because literally the results are almost identical even if you go back to the Winston Cup points format. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
I hate the playoffs, but people are out here talking about, like, how it's because of the stupid playoff system that the best drivers didn't make it into the final round. And the drivers they're listing, even if it was a pure point system, would still be 5th and 6th in the championship. Which is where they're at now. This is the same thing that would have happened no matter what.
You got me thinking, because the two biggest reasons, and I follow a Kyle Larson fan on Instagram. There's this popular term called Mickey Mouse champion, and because people have pointed to the fact that Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson were the two best drivers this season, they should be fighting for the title in Phoenix. I want to point out just a couple of things, and I understand, because I lived through 2020 with Kevin Harvick. That was rough. It is unfortunate that those guys don't get the reward. I think the only driver that got robbed this year was Kyle Larson, and I hate the fact that people are calling this year's champ for the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, because I want to say that yes, Joey Logano was a huge underdog. However, 7 of the round of 8 drivers were the top 7 in the standings. All, the top 7 were the top 7. And with this playoff system, yeah, Joey is going to go to Phoenix. And I can understand why people don't like that. Of course, I like it because I'm a Ford fan. But I also want to say Ryan Blaney and William Byron are not Mickey Mouse guys. I want you, the listener, if you're there, and if you actually care, if you go on, this year's statistics, which I did, Ryan Blaney has one less top 10 than Kyle. No, Ryan Blaney has the same amount of top 10s this year as Kyle Larson, 2 less top 5s, with 2 more DNFs. Yes, he has 3 less race wins, but that doesn't mean Ryan Blaney hasn't been just as consistent as Kyle Larson all year. And let's look at William Byron. William Byron has 3 more top 10s than Kyle Larson, the same amount of top 5s, and yes, once again, half the wins. So Kyle Larson, I'm fine with the fact that he's not going to Phoenix.
Kyle Larson, under the Winston Cup point format, would still be 5th. Behind. The only person that a pure points format would have swapped around for this is Christopher Bell would be in 2nd right now.
Yeah. Yeah, Christopher Bell's been great, but also, guys, look up the stats. Christopher Bell, I think he only has, it's either the same or only 1 or 2 more top 10s than William Byron. These guys are so close, and the only driver I'm willing to even argue about is Joey Logano, who doesn't deserve to be there, because any of those top 7 drivers, I'm okay with them succeeding in this points format. They were all really good this year. They all led close to the same amount of laps, and people are acting like Tyler Reddick is the only legitimate contender going into Phoenix, and but I also understand that that's mostly from Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson fans.
Under the Winston Cup points, it would be Chase Elliott leading, followed by Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, William Byron for the top 4.
And there you go. 2 of the top 4 are going to Phoenix. And I believe Ryan Blaney is 7th, 6th or 7th?
Yes, he is 7th. The only one that is not top 10 is Joey Logano in 14th.
And that is pretty insane. But also kind of why I love the playoffs, because look, I get the scrutiny, and I get why I don't like it, Eli, but I just love the fact that can happen. You know, it's my chaotic brain that loves the fact that someone like Joey Logano, who thrives in this point system because he is clutch, because that's the thing. No, Joey Logano wasn't consistent this year. He was once again like a outside the top 10 car at best, usually all year. It's because Joey is freaking clutch and Kyle Larson isn't. There you go. I said it. It's the facts. If you actually think Kyle Larson's clutch, I just want you to rewatch Homestead. And that's why Kyle Larson isn't going to Homestead. My bad. Phoenix.
Yeah, I just like that's the thing is I can give you a million reasons that the playoffs is a kind of crap system. But like to imply that the manufacturer conspiracies only happened because of the playoffs is nonsense. But that's what people are trying to sell it as. To manufacture that none of the top four deserve a shot at the championship, again, nonsense.
They're like, Tyler Reddick is the only deserving champion. And you look at the statistics and laps led, Blaney and Byron completely deserve to be there to me. Joey Logano is the only one where, once again, I'm kind of mixed in the boat because
the thing that gets me
I'll play
is the only difference between William Byron and Tyler Reddick, realistically, is what laps led and poles.
Yeah, and William Byron has 200 laps led less, I think.
He has 200 laps led less and 2 less poles. Their average finishing position is... that's funny. William Byron's average finishing position is actually higher than Tyler Reddick's.
I just... Because the thing is, no, I'm not a Hendrick Motorsports fan, but the thing is, if you just look at the statistics, I'm perfectly fine with Byron being there. And in fact, I'm perfectly fine with really anyone in the round of 8 being there. Once again, Joey Logano is the only one where I can sympathize, but even then, Joey Logano is, and you know what? I kind of want to say there's a big reason all this is happening. Joey Logano is one of the least liked drivers in NASCAR who made it to the title race. Penske is one of the least liked manufacturers because what Penske does every year is they're clutch when they need to be and they make the championship four, and so that's why they become Mickey Mouse champions. Kyle Larson chokes at the end of the year, and that's why he never wins a championship except when Cliff Daniels gives him a rocket ship. That's facts. And I was about to really put this to bed here because, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, and Christopher Bell are three of the sport's 3 most popular drivers. Toyota fans gravitate towards Bell, and Chevrolet fans gravitate towards Elliott and Larson. And when all 3 of those guys don't make it, of course, an enormous part of the fan base is just going to mob a mentality their way into believing what Brad Keselowski says because their guy didn't make it. And I get that. I hated the playoffs in 2020 because my guy didn't make it. But you play the game, you win, you lose with the game.
Like, the thing is, the only driver that I would say it's kind of bull that isn't going into the final round is Chase Elliott, just because he does exemplify the weakness of this system. Because his season has not been flashy. 1 win, no poles, 11 top 5s, 18 top 10s, and yet his average finishing position is 11.8, which is a higher position than literally any other full-time driver.
Yeah.
But that's not the thing everyone's talking about. People are talking about Bell and Larson.
Yeah, Bell. Well, that kind of shows you where the mentality is at right now. It's kind of like I don't even think people know what they want. It's like people are pining for the Winston Cup, but neither one of those guys would be winning the Winston right now. It's just because they've been the flashiest guys all year.
Yeah, like Bell is the only one of those 2 that would have a shot at it.
Larson would have lost at this point. It would have been between
Larson
Elliott and Bell.
would be 143 points behind going into the last race.
Yeah. And I'm kind of glad because when we went back to the Coca-Cola 600, everyone kept saying, "Is this going to come back to bite Kyle Larson eventually?" I think with any format you look at, Kyle Larson choosing Indy over Charlotte, which once again, can you really blame the guy? I'm not sure you can. But the thing is, at the end of the day, you know exactly what you're doing, and it proved something great to me that the regular season does matter. Because people did the math, and if Kyle Larson ran the Coca-Cola 600, there would have been a chance he would have won the regular season title. If he had those 15 extra points Tyler Reddick had, he probably would have pointed his way to Phoenix. So there you go. People can say the regular season doesn't matter now, but I think Kyle Larson just proved every single race matters.
Yeah,
Every
I do feel the
last
need.
race matters.
I do feel the need at this point to shout out NWCS_standings on Twitter because they're the ones where I'm getting all this data.
Oh yeah, same.
It's like I could have gone back and done the math, but I'm lazy and I knew somebody else did.
Yeah, no, they're a blessing. So thank you to them. But I've kind of gotten out everything I wanted to say about the playoff weekend. It's like I really wish. Because the fans I followed, like instantly after the race was over, they put the Championship 4 picture in the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse theme. Said it was the worst Championship 4 ever. Said Larson deserved to be in. It's like when you kind of just post based off emotion or just
There's
kind
no
of
format where
based off
Larson
emotion.
is in the top 4.
What do you say?
There is no format unless you literally only award points for wins where Larson is in the top 4.
Yeah, and but the people weren't really willing to do the research for that, and I don't know. I just feel like this is such an underrated Championship 4, and it's kind of nice to be a fan of one of the drivers in there because because of that, I went back and looked at the math and everything, and I'm like, yeah, the 3 of the 4 guys absolutely deserve to be there. And we're recording this on a Saturday night where Ryan Blaney topped practice sheets in Phoenix. It's a very strong chance, the reason people are complaining, aka Joey Logano, he's probably not going to win this year. Unless the even year curse completely plays out and he does, then I'm going to be biting my foot. But I don't know. I'm just satisfied with how things have worked out this year. Statistically, I don't mind. It's kind of just like any year. You look at any playoff year and it's like, okay, yeah, there's probably a driver in the Championship 4 who kind of got lucky. But once again, that's just how the game works typically. And then kind of how racing works. It's not always fair. You might get a bad oil filter and that ends your race. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't the team's fault. It was the supplier's fault. But who cares? It's machines.
From my perspective, as much as I want the playoff format to die, if this ends up being the death knell, then it's just like, God, you're idiots.
I agree. It'll be a bad look.
I do think this goes to show that people are getting fed up with the playoff format, though.
They're trying to find reasons to leave.
Yeah, like, even whenever it's something that statistically is not actually a problem with the playoff format, they're saying it is, and very vocally, and, like, not just, random people on Twitter, but, like, drivers, team owners, pit chiefs, and the media. That's kind of getting to the point where you're like, okay, you really do need to somewhat consider the optics of this.
I think everyone has mutually agreed that if all NASCAR does is make the final round a 3 race round, everyone might be happy.
I mean, the thing is, I don't think if what they did is just like took, say, the top 10 drivers at the end of the regular season, and then you have like 4 races where their points are reset, and like then you distribute points to them to where all of them have a statistical chance of winning the championship. Okay. But that, just get rid of the tournament. But don't do it because of this race. Just do it because it's dumb.
Yeah, I'm glad I was the only one feeling like people were kind of projecting on this for no real reason, but Brad Keselowski started the mob mentality.
Yeah. See, that's the thing, is the entire reason I was so insistent that we do talk about this is because, like, I have gone off on the playoffs randomly in unrelated conversation on here before. I am very much on the record as hating that system. Like, I wanted to talk about how dumb it was that people were using this as an opportunity to attack it. Like, that was a fundamental flaw of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's whatever. I mean, what are you gonna do? Nothing, because NASCAR rules everything. That's kind of all I have to say, other than oh, there's one more thing I do want to say. It's not about Cup. I do want to say that 6.5 something years ago, between there, I got a Bit O' Honey NASCAR diecast from no other than Ty Majeski, who in 2018 was kind of not really anybody in NASCAR and was really just mostly a back marker struggling to make, the minimum speed and all that stuff. Well, as of yesterday, he's a Truck Series champion. 3 wins. So I just like that, because it's kind of cool to see someone you grew up watching struggle to do anything finally wins a big piece of hardware. And I think he's gotten an extra 3 wins. I think he has somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 career wins now. So I just think that's cool, because first time I ever heard his name, there was no real guarantee he was ever gonna stay there for anything longer than that. Now he's a champion.
Nice.
So Xfinity Championship is in like an hour, I think. So we'll podcast about that next week, though.
So now
I just want full customer.
I say that is next week conversation when Levi is the host, and I have literally nothing to cover.
Oh boy!
So if the safety car special 2 with Levi talks to himself for an hour, wait until next week's episode where it's Levi talking about the NASCAR Truck Series, NASCAR Xfinity Series, and the NASCAR Cup Series Championship.
Probably surrounded by all of my toys.
I literally I don't think I will have, because like even WAC everything is over, and Formula One it doesn't come back for another week. So, but speaking of Formula One,
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt the host, but it kind of feels like Formula One goes on forever nowadays. It's weird, because NASCAR almost feels quick at a certain point, but now that Formula One goes till like the butt of December, it's kind of like, man, when's this going to end?
Well, it's because Formula One has really weird, random breaks in its calendar now, right? Because like it used to be that you had a 1 3-week break in the middle of the season, and then for the rest of the year, the biggest that you'd have is 2 weeks, and it would usually only be like a week off. But for some reason, this season, there have been 3 or 4 3-week breaks.
Yeah, I think, you know what, you're right, Eli. I think it's just the fact that a 9-month NASCAR season is every single week, but like when you're trying to follow Formula One, and like, yeah, there's only 24 races, and it's so darn spread out through 9 months, it's like, ugh, tired.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's like, it's just that they're weirdly pacing them out. I mean, it's a lot of races, but that's not the thing that makes the season go on so long. But anyway, Brazil, historically, for anyone who does not know, was a colony of Portugal. That is completely irrelevant to the rest of this conversation. But it is also, historically, one of the best races on the entire Formula One calendar, to the point that if we had every single race here instead of all over the world, most people wouldn't complain. I say most people because those weirdos who love Monaco still exist.
It's about the history.
But we're back to Sao Paulo. And it was supposed to rain. It's also a sprint race because we had 3 of them in the first 6 races, and then Formula One forgot they were a thing for the rest of the season until the last 6 races. But that also means one less practice session. So, sprint qualifying. Oscar Piastri takes pole, followed by Lando Norris. And then you do not give a crap about the rest of the things because barely anything happens in the race, in the sprint race. If I remember right, there was at one point a safety car because something happened. Oh, right, there's controversy. A lot of other things happened this weekend, so everything that happened before Sunday got erased from my mind. But basically, where is it? Who in the world went out that led to the Hulkenberg? I believe it was. Anyway, basically, the only important thing that happened was late in the race, there ended up being a VSC. Because of this, you'd think... Sorry, my mind is completely... I don't have notes on this one, so I'm having to actually find the details somewhere else. But basically, what ends up happening is going into the last lap. I believe it was. Yeah. So, Hulkenberg has a problem. And then it takes a weirdly long time for it to go to a VSC. And then the instant that the 2 McLarens swap places, the VSC is called. Now, McLaren's plan was to call for the swap on the last lap. But they saw that there was going to need to be a VSC, so they needed to carry it out now. But there was a gap between Piastri and Lando. So they needed to close while it was still yellow flags. But the instant they swapped, the VSC was called. Yeah. This looks not particularly weird yet, because we've not talked about actual race qualifying yet. But the result is Max is right behind Piastri, except what ends up happening is Max, from what I can tell, does not get the notification that he is over the minimum track time until right before the VSC ends, causing him to get a penalty, causing him to fall from 3rd in the sprint to 4th. Now, tight championship fight. That 1 point could make all the difference. It doesn't. It won't. Championship is over. But we'll get to that. So, what this leads to is, after the sprint race, because the sprint's on Saturday, in the afternoon, you're supposed to have the qualifying session. Except there's a giant storm coming in. So...
And that storm is Max Verstappen, am I right?
No, not yet. The decision gets made that, to cancel the qualifying session and hold it Sunday morning. And another decision gets made. For the first time since, I believe, 87? I think it was sometime in the 80s. I might be wrong on the exact year, though. They also alter the start time of the race by moving it forward. Because there's basically a 4-hour window. Not 4 hours. There's like an 8-hour window in the entirety of Sunday where there isn't going to be enough rain for them to have to cancel the race. And so in that time, they have to run qualifying and the race.
Wow.
Yeah. So, the teams have to get to track at 4 in the morning on Sunday to start getting prepped.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yeah, because their time, the full race starts at 12:30. It doesn't end up starting at 12:30 because somebody did things, but that's when it was scheduled to start. But that brings us to Brazil qualifying. This is why I mentioned that there were some oddly timed calls by the stewards and marshals and race control for certain things. Because what ends up happening in Q2 of qualifying, a certain Lancelot Stroll decides to be an idiot. It is worth noting it's raining, but he bends it. And so what ends up happening is the sector that he does that in, it's double wave yellows. For a while he is stuck in the gravel, in the runoff, right alongside the track. For long enough that almost everybody is able to complete a second flying lap. Now, Levi, did you hear anything about this?
All I heard was the Stroll being an idiot part, like IRL, off of a few different accounts I follow, but nothing beyond that.
Okay, so I want you to guess how long they wait between Stroll getting stuck and there being a yellow flag sector and them calling the red flag to the session.
Well, considering you're having a reaction to this, I'm guessing it's at least twice as long as NASCAR, so an hour.
We're not to that point yet.
15 minutes.
This isn't about penalties. This is about them flagging this, calling a flag.
Oh, okay.
The thing that usually takes a few seconds.
I was gonna just say, give me a solid minute.
Pretty close. It was like 40 to 50 seconds.
They actually thought Stroll could get it turned around. That actually takes skill, though.
Here's the thing. He was stuck in the gravel and his car was damaged. He wasn't going to get out. He hit a wall.
Build a wall, yes.
So, yeah. I'm not saying that there's a conspiracy here. I'm saying that the stewards and race control are idiots. Because I see what their logic was. Their logic was, oh, those drivers aren't in that sector anymore, so let's wait for all of them to do it. But if we have the yellows thrown in Sector 1, then that means they're going to have to slow down. This is ignoring the fact that the drivers coming off of their flying laps are going into Sector 1, into the area where that car is stuck.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So the result of this is both Max and Perez end up out in Q2. Now, Perez is, of course, used to that, but Max isn't. And this is actually...
No, you forget. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I have to do this for Checo, because Checo and Max are kind of on the same plane. It just took a while for Max's car to downgrade to Perez's.
Here's the thing. I don't think you understand how important this moment is. Because this is the first time since Max and Lewis have both been on the grid that neither of them made it to Q3. Mind you, that's a decade. That is nearly a decade that one of these two drivers has been in Q3 every single race.
Call them a missing U2 member because they lost the edge.
Yeah, but... So, the thing is, Max then has a grid penalty because he has to take a bunch of new engine components. So he's starting 15th.
Wow.
Certain other things happened, namely that both of the Williams drivers crashed. Let me just see if I can find the full list of drivers who crashed, because if I remember right, there were like 4 cars that didn't start the race. No, not 4. Might have only been 2. There were multiple cars that didn't start the race because they were destroyed. Let me see who all crashed out. Because it is worth noting that when I said there was a window where the weather was clear enough for them to be able to get everything done, I did not say that it wasn't going to rain in that window. I just said that the rain was going to be light enough that a helicopter could still fly. Because for anyone who doesn't know, the standard for just canceling a race is that they can't medevac a driver to a hospital if they're in a terrible accident. But yeah. Okay, I can't find just a straight list. But the important thing is that several drivers have broken cars and destroyed cars. And as a result, multiple cars do not start. And Lando Norris takes pole. Now, here's the thing. Who do you expect to be the driver behind Lando on pole? Not the driver in second, but the driver directly behind him. So the driver in third.
If Lando gets pole, I would expect one of the Ferraris to be behind him.
Yeah, you would think. It's Yuki.
Oh man, heck yeah, Yuki wants that seat next year.
So the grid order was Norris, Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon, Lawson, Leclerc, Albon, Piastri, Alonso, Stroll, Bottas, Verstappen, Perez, Sainz, Gasly, Hamilton, Bierman, Colapinto, Hulkenberg, Zhou. Mind you, that's the qualifying order, that's not their actual starting order.
The sky is yellow, it is raining green, and monkeys are now a drink.
Yep. So the starting order was Norris, Russell, Tsunoda, Ocon, Lawson, Leclerc. Technically Albon, but his car was so destroyed from him crashing in Q3 that they couldn't get it fixed. Piastri, Alonso, was supposed to be Stroll. We'll get to that. Bottas, Perez in 12th. That's important. Gasly in 13th. Also important. Hamilton, Bierman, Colapinto, Max Verstappen in 17th, followed by Nico Hulkenberg, Zhou Guanyu, and then Carlos Sainz having to start from the pit lane because he crashed, and they did not have enough replacements of the same spec. So he had to change spec of parts, breaking Parc Ferme, and had to start from the pit lane. Do you know when the last time a driver won from P17 was?
Does it have to be P17 or can it be farther back?
Well, I'll tell you this. The most recent time a driver finished that far back was from P17 starting.
Last time they finished, completely just finished the race?
No, one.
Oh, one, okay. That very much sounds like a Shumi 2000s thing.
Right era, wrong driver.
Whoa. Wait a second. Raikkonen at Suzuka.
Yes, it was. That is the last time a
Yeah.
driver started 17th and wins a race. That streak was broken last week. It is still not the farthest back. It's still not the farthest back a driver has won a race from, though. That is P22.
Was that Pastor?
I do not remember.
I'll have to look it up because.
Yeah, you look that up. I've still got more build up to this race to do. We're gonna be here a while.
Okay, I got it.
But
I got this.
Another thing that gets broken is Max Verstappen is officially the driver who has won from the most distinct, most unique grid positions. He's the only driver in Formula One history to have won a race from 10 different starting slots. Now, if you're wondering, why in the world I am just talking about Max winning already, it's because, as you will see as I actually start talking about the race, it was inevitable. Did you say you found it?
Yeah, it was John Watson in 1983, the United States Grand Prix West.
That sounds like something we should. That sounds like something we should cover in an episode at some point.
There was one driver better than Max. His name was John Watson.
But yeah.
John Watson hit the God mode that day. Babe, why can't you be more like prime John Watson?
I do need to look someone up real quick. I cannot remember his name, but I need it to be able to get a specific timing. And what's really annoying about not being able to remember his name is that he is literally one of my go-tos for Formula One news. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and get into the race because that's not relevant until later. So, we are now, with the prelude, the preamble, all of that done. Finally, onto the formation lap. Lights go out. Lando leads them away. Lance Stroll locks his rear tires. He spins. He goes over the gravel trap. Manages to hit the escape road. You know, the nice paved escape road that leads right back onto the track that you can just drive along so that you don't have to drive through the gravel trap and get stuck if you go over it. Right, that escape road. So Lance Stroll immediately turns hard left, drives straight into the gravel trap, and immediately gets stuck. To do this, he literally had to face the right way on the escape road and keep turning. At this point, the Brazilian crowd starts cheering Dragovich.
Oh, wow.
You can hear it on the broadcast. Fans in the stands cheering for Felipe Dragovich. Lance Stroll beaches himself on the gravel completely of his own accord. The thing is, like, the brakes locking up in the rain, that happens sometimes. You'll look like an idiot when it does. But, you know, every now and then something weird happens. You hit a patch of water weird, especially on a track that hasn't been run on for a while it's been raining. And it was new pavement, right? There's been some resurfacing. So it's like, that happens, and you look dumb, but no big deal. But when you actively choose to then drive into the gravel trap and act surprised when you get stuck, it might be the most Lance Stroll moment of his career, and it is made all the better because, as of this race weekend, he is the most experienced Canadian Formula One driver of all time.
That's going to change here in 3 races.
Canada has a champion. But Lance Stroll is their most experienced driver, and he doesn't know how to deal with a gravel trap.
Does Lance Stroll,
Have a brain? No.
Does Lance Stroll play NASCAR Thunder 2004 on the weekends?
No, that's Max.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, but it's just... It is so comedically beautiful. Especially because of the utter chaos that this then leads to. Because what happens is, in the first sequence of turns, there is a car stuck that has to have a recovery team come out and get it. So, they obviously can't start the race. Which means it's an aborted start. So, you want to know what then ends up happening?
What?
Well, all of the cars line up on the starting grid, and then instead of the lights going red to get ready to go out, or going green to signal to do another formation lap, they go yellow. And the teams get told that it's an aborted start, shut down your cars. So instead, Lando decides to just go ahead and do another formation lap. While there are marshals on the track trying to recover a car.
What Lando was thinking in his head while he was doing the formation lap was, did Lewis Hamilton really earn all of his F1 accomplishments?
The thing is, so, other cars around him, seeing this, start going. And then there are, 6 drivers who know what you're supposed to do during an aborted start. So, because what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to pull up to your box, shut off your engine, then the teams can come out, they can put the tire warmers back on, and then, they can wait for the, information on when the new start time is going to be, the new formation lap, all that stuff, right? So you've got, Bottas, Max, a few other drivers, just sitting on the grid, watching half of the grid drive off, radioing their team, and being like, what's going on here? What do I do? Max immediately hops on the radio and says, they're not supposed to do that. What are they doing? And Horner comes over and says, yeah, we know, we're trying to figure out what's going on. So you have Max just sitting there for a good couple minutes, kind of just chilling, talking to the team, what am I supposed to do? And they eventually tell him, restart the engine, because at this point, everybody else is gone, and they're going to come back around and have to drive around you. So just, refire the engine, do the lap, because if you're going to get a penalty, everyone else is going to get the same one. When in reality, there are two people to blame for this, I would argue, and that is the two drivers on the front row. Because everyone else is just like, what else are they supposed to do at that point?
The idiot and the idiot that followed.
Pretty much. And then everyone else is kind of like, if I don't go, they're going to come up behind me and hit me. So, as a result of this... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the pinnacle of motorsport.
Yep. So, no, like, what then ends up happening is, you know, you have all of that nonsense happen. Mind you, this is also glossing over the fact that drivers drove to the wrong start boxes.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, because Albon wasn't starting the race. So, driver drove into his. And driver behind him drove into that driver's. Yeah. And they would have all been penalized had Lando actually followed the instructions, but he didn't. But I felt this is worth mentioning, because this is the incident that I was talking about when I said, oh yeah, a half an hour for a penalty. Because, let me see if I can find the race start time. For when this incident happened. Mind you, I am having to scroll very, very far back. Okay, so, the investigation into this started at 10:39 a.m. our time. So just remember that. 10:39 a.m. Mind you, what I'm having to do right now is scroll to find where it is finally, you know, announced what's going to happen.
Don't scroll too much, or else you may end up in a gravel trap. Am I right?
God, that is still hilarious.
Lance scroll, guys. Ugh, that was my only attempt to fill space for you. I'm sorry.
No, here's the thing. The awkward silence kind of illustrates my point just as well as me getting the actual time. 5:11 p.m.
God. A 7-hour Brazil trip.
Yeah. Or wait, no, sorry, that's the wrong thing.
Please say 7 p.m.
That was for Mercedes making a mistake.
Oh my gosh, yes. Let's
a red flag. $5:47 p.m.
Exactly 7 hours.
Yeah. You want to know what Norris's penalty? Mind you, Norris was not going slow. He was doing a full speed formation lap with marshals and a recovery crew on the track. And I would remind you that a couple weeks earlier, Max got a 10-second penalty for pushing Norris off the track. And that before that, Max had to serve community service for saying the F word in an interview. And after that, Leclerc had to pay $10,000 for saying the F word in an interview. So, take a wild guess as to what Lando's action that put people's lives at risk in dangerous weather in a situation, part of the track, where it has literally just been shown that if somebody's tires walk up the wrong way, is where they're going to end up. What do you think his penalty was?
5-second penalty.
That would have been better.
What?
A $5,000 fine.
Oh.
After
Let me just get
7 hours.
let me just get that out of Lando's butt crack here.
Yep. Lando and George both got a $5,000 fine, and everyone else, no further action, because what were they supposed to do?
Well, saying for an interview does kind of put people's lives at risk,
It's just, this is why I mentioned earlier the half-hour wait not being that bad. Because the
That's what I'm
race,
saying. I was fine with the half hour, man.
the race was 3 hours long.
How nice. Oh, that was like a full Coca-Cola 600, my guy.
Yeah, no. So here's the thing. My opinion is it should have been a 10-second stop go. Because, egregious safety things like that tend to be that or a disqualification. But we've forgotten that stop go penalties are a thing.
But if they do that, then Formula One will very much lock up the championship for Max, and they need higher viewership the next 3 races. It's a conspiracy.
The funniest thing is, they already knew the championship was over when they made that decision.
Yes, but there's still technically a chance, so they're going to take their chances.
For reference, because again, I'm going to get this out of the way now. Max Verstappen, over the next 3 races, which include a sprint race, needs 24 points. And that is assuming that Lando wins every race and takes every fastest lap. Max needs to average 6 points a race to win the championship. That is literally him doing the worst his car could do when driven by someone who knows how to drive a car. As we'll talk about later, Checo doesn't count.
You mean 6-time Formula One F1 winner, Checo Perez?
God. Yeah. So, now that we've got that all out of the way, the races had to be reduced by 1 lap because Lando decided to waste an extra lap of fuel for everyone. Then they had to do an extra formation lap again and all of that. We can finally get to the actual race.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. This was all just build up. Yeah, no, this is all just build up. Told you this is going to be a long one.
I was about to say, I just finalized the diecast order.
Yeah, so, lights go green, and Max makes up 6 positions into turn 1.
My God. That's an unfair AI.
2 of the cars weren't running anymore. However, the commentators thought it was Checo. Because they just
Checo
assumed...
has gained that many positions all year.
No, they didn't think that Checo had made up that many positions. They had thought, because that was the position that Checo was starting in, is where Max now was passed. Meanwhile, Lando loses a position to Russell.
Of course.
And then Checo spins. Then, a little bit later, Max overtakes Lewis to get into the points. Then he starts closing in on Gasly as rain starts coming down heavier.
Gaslightly.
Here's the thing. I said I was tracking 4 drivers through this race. Those 4 drivers were Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, Esteban Ocon, and Pierre Gasly. So, lap 5, turn 1, Max overtakes Gasly, and Lando sets the fastest lap. I'm going to mention fastest laps a lot, because they'll be important later. Lap 6, Max overtakes Alonso for P8. Russell and Norris are fighting, getting back-to-back fastest laps, taking them off of each other. That is laps 5 and 6. Lap 7, Max takes fastest lap. Get used to me saying that. Lap 9, Max is under half a second from Oscar. Lap 10, turn 1, again. Max overtakes Oscar for P7. At this point, Bierman then decides to rear-end Colapinto, spin himself off. Colapinto doesn't even notice, and then gets a 10-second penalty. There's a very unfortunate thing that happens this weekend, which is there were several drivers that this was their first time driving a Formula 1 car in the rain, and it was very heavy rain. So, yeah. But, lap 10. Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 11. In turns 4 through 10. No, turns 9 and 10, the sweepers. Sorry, my handwriting is a bit crap there. Max overtakes Liam Lawson for P6. This man started in 17th. In 11 laps, he is in P6. In the rain. Without DRS. At this point, Hamilton goes off track and gets overtaken by Colapinto. Lewis was also having a very rough race, and I decided in my notes to occasionally point that out. And then Max decides on lap 12 to set the fastest lap again. Lap 14 starts raining even harder. Meanwhile, Max is in the midfield setting fastest laps. Lando is not able to gain on Russell at all. Lap 15, Gasly now starts to moving up to P9, overtaking Alonso.
I think Norris wasn't able to gain anything because he was probably thinking, man, Max is in 5th place purely on luck.
Where am I? Yes. At this point, Max Verstappen finally encounters another driver who knows how to race. Because at this point, he closes in on Leclerc. This will prompt a comment at the end in the cooldown room from Max.
Oh my gosh. Can we please talk about the thirst?
In the cooldown room, whenever they show the clip of Max trying to get past Leclerc, he says, "Here I got a bit stuck because Charles is actually quite decent." Oh. Yeah, Leclerc is the only driver to give him even a slight challenge. A couple of these overtakes he seems to have done on accident, like not even actually it looks like he was just trying to put himself in the other driver's mirrors, and they were just like, you know what, just go.
I mean, Charles was kind of a dude with that defense. That was some pretty good stuff.
It was great. And it just reminds me how much we were robbed in 2022 by Ferrari being incompetent. It's like when those two were racing in 22, it was incredible. But Ferrari didn't know how to build a car, because they still had Donato.
Isn't it incredible when Charles is actually racing someone? He's one of the best of all time, but when he's just racing himself, he gets psyched out and sucks.
It is... The most hilarious thing about that is that's only true during an actual race, because when he's just hot lapping in qualifying, he's also incredible. Charles is only good when, and specifically when, Max is either directly in front of him or in his mirror.
That would be, yeah, like, I want some, wait, if Lewis Hamilton is just Max Verstappen but black, how good is Charles going to be next year?
You know what? Now that I think about it, Charles might end up being the champion next year.
That's the thing, though. I mean, Ferrari, if they're gonna be, well, oh man, we haven't even talked about the fact that Ferrari might lock down the constructors' title this year.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
If they, okay, but I was gonna say if they can build a competitive car out of the gates, that I will I might actually literally pay to see it. Like, I want to see a race of live of just Charles hunting down Lewis, and I want to see what happens. And I want to say Lewis, say, "Oh man, that's some dangerous driving, man."
But yeah. So at this point, Norris is starting to actually close on Russell. Not like super fast, but he's finally gotten it to under a second. Not that matters because it's pouring rain, so there's no DRS. And then Ollie Bierman overtakes Hamilton on lap 19.
He said, "Beer me."
Yeah. Then Sainz overtakes Hamilton and Bierman immediately after this. So Hamilton is not having fun. At this point, the sky turns black.
Rock You Like a Hurricane begins to blast over the speakers.
Pretty much. The end of lap 21, Leclerc gets a little bit loose on the rear, manages to keep a hold of it, keep ahead of Max going into the new lap, but then a few laps later, he pits for new tires because, remember, they're still running on the inters they were at the start of the race, and it is now raining very, very heavily.
Wait, so Max didn't actually get past Charles on the track. It was after Charles had to pit.
Yep.
So he was that good?
Yeah. No, Charles held Max off. Let me see. Where did I start? I think it was lap 15 is when Max and Charles start actually fighting. And it is not until the end of lap 24 that Charles pits. Mind you, everyone else, Max, every other overtake, it is basically Max closing the gap in 1 or 2 laps and then immediately going for the overtake.
I feel fuzzy inside knowing there's at least one driver who can match Max.
Yep. Lap 26.
That's it.
Mind you, visibility. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it was a feel good moment. I'm sorry, I feel
It
good.
is. It is. Again, we were robbed in 22. But lap 26, mind you, the rain is continuously getting harder. Lando wants to box for fresh inters. It is pouring rain at this point. Nobody else is pitting at this point, right? So then Piastri hits Lawson, gets a 10-second penalty off of that. Lap 27, Hulkenberg spins, gets beached on a curb. I'm just going to go ahead and spoil this now. The stewards come out, and not the stewards, the marshals come out and get him unbeached. Which means he then gets black flagged because he got illegal assistance to keep driving. So what what this means is that this race had a did not start, a did not finish, and a disqualification. It has been a minute since you've had all 3 of those in one race. I don't actually know how long it's been, but it's been a while. And the last time there was a disqualification was Coda last year, but pretty sure everybody started. Anyway, so that happens. And then there's a VSC. So Lando gets his wish of getting to pit. And meanwhile, Russell is arguing with Mercedes saying, this rain is getting worse. This VSC is probably going to turn into a safety car, if not a red flag at some point. Why are we pitting? That's worth noting. Yeah, Russell, in the lead of the race, is saying, we're going to get a red flag. We should plan around that instead. You know, just keep that in the back of your mind for a minute. It's at this point that Akon manages to overtake Yuki for P3. And then let me get going. Then lap 30 is raining so hard that they decide that it's dangerous track conditions, so full course safety car. Not because of an incident, but because of how hard the rain is. They want to cycle behind the safety car, clear out the water, see if the rain's going to stop or not. As a reminder, 2 laps earlier, Russell is arguing with his team that things are going to get worse, so we should be planning around a safety car or a red flag. Right?
Russell the realist.
Yeah, so it is then at this point that it gets pointed out by the commentators that this is the first race that Alpine has finished a lap with either car in the top 5 all season. Ocon is leading the race at this point.
Esty bestie.
Yeah, the Alpine's first time lapping within the top 5 is a race where at one point they've led laps. And then lap 32, behind the safety car, Colapinto, again, reminder, this is his first race in actual rain in a Formula 1 car, crashes. Red flag. Ocon,
RAP.
Max, and Gasly all stayed out. Under a red flag, they get to change their tires for free. Because they strategized around it. Russell also wanted to do the same. So you have 4 drivers on 3 teams planning their strategy around this. Would you say that that is a completely random, unforeseeable event?
Yes, because only George can foresee the rain.
No, it's quite the opposite. He thinks his own sweat is rain.
Whoa, that's true. Speaking of Canadians.
But, no, yeah. So, the reason I'm pointing that out is because after the race, Lando would go on to complain that Max's strategy that let him win was all down to luck.
Yeah, mate, it was all down to luck right there.
He actually, what he said is that Max got lucky because of being allowed to change tires under the red flag. Mind you, this is ignoring the fact that Max was lapping half a second faster than anyone else the entire time leading up to this. Right? This red flag doesn't happen, Max pits normally, he still wins this race.
Unless Charles' butt is in his face. And then he
See, but that's the thing. On strategy, he was ahead. So he would have come out ahead of Charles.
Max was like, maybe I kind of wanted to stay there for a bit.
That's the actual reason that he has a hard time passing Charles.
He just likes it so much.
But no, yeah, so, like, but it's also worth remembering that Lando's first win, he got because of a late safety car. And the second after the race, when people were asking Max, talking to Max about how he got unlucky, he immediately said, "It's not unlucky. That's how the race played out. Lando's not lucky. They had the strategy. Things played out. It's no reason to think about how things would have been if things were different. This is Lando's win. There's nothing to take that away or detract from it." Lando immediately starts going off about how it's so unfair that the teams that saw the obvious fact that the rain was going to get bad enough, it wasn't a question of if there would be a red flag. It was a question about which car would cause it. Because mind you, Colapinto crashed on new tires, on fresh tires. The red flag was happening no matter what. 3 teams and 4 drivers saw that. Lando didn't. So, yeah. Just wanted to bring that up at this point. So then we get a restart, and Lando immediately drives off the course, which,
Haven't we all?
well, so, you saw the, for reference, the day that this is happening, Max Verstappen is taking place in a charity endurance sim race, and on his livery, he included a certain meme.
Oh, what was that name?
A certain meme. Did you look at the pictures of his car?
I saw Sid.
That was part of it. You should look at the picture of the front.
I'm gonna have to reopen it because I deleted it. Here, let's reopen it. I see Max in some diamond Minecraft gear with something that says it's effed.
Look for the picture that's of the front
dude.
of the car.
I see George Russell with Woody. Let me scroll through here.
It should be the second picture.
Oh, look at that. It's Lando running off.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Anyway, at this point, something incredible happens. Ocon gaps Max. He pulls, I believe, up to, at one point, a 4-second lead after the restart on Max.
The rumors about this Frenchman were true.
The most hilarious thing, again, at this point, the Alpines are both in the top 3, and they're both there on merit. And they're going to stay there on merit, is the wild thing. Because we'll get into what happens. A lot of people try to say that George was close to overtaking Gasly. Here's the thing. He wasn't. Because, yes, he ended the race 7 tenths behind Gasly. He was also fluctuating from 7 tenths to 1.2 seconds behind Gasly the entire time he was behind Gasly. That's just where he was for half of the race. But lap 39, Max starts actually closing the gap to Ocon, at which point Sainz loses it on turn 8 and crashes. This leads to a safety car. Yeah. Mind you, he crashed in qualifying too, so that car has already been rebuilt once. As had Colapinto's and Leclerc's. Not Leclerc's, Stroll's. Of course, Stroll's didn't actually get damaged in the race, it just got beached because he's an idiot.
I think what you meant to say was greatest of all time. At least in Canada.
Again, Joe Villeneuve exists. Jacques Villeneuve exists. But anyway, safety car ends at lap 42. Lap 43 is the restart. And on the restart, Max overtakes Ocon for first place. Norris goes off the track. That is now where that picture is from. I got it switched around which safety car restart it was. But Norris goes off the track, dropping to P7, which means he is now behind Piastri. I want to point out, have you noticed me mention Lando moving up any positions this race?
No.
Yeah, that's because the only position he gains is on his own teammate under team orders.
I think everyone else getting positions, though, was just kind of based on luck, if we can both agree.
I just want to hold you accountable for a few weeks ago when you said that I was being overdramatic about Lando, because I have never felt more vindicated.
I mean, at the time, you kind of were. I mean, I could say today that Ryan Blaney is just a heaping pile of garbage.
I saw the
in another
future.
3 weeks, I'll be proved true. Yeah. I'm glad you're vindicated, if that's what you want me to say. I'm glad you're vindicated, but you were kind of being mean.
All I'm saying is I called it.
Oh, I'm glad you called it. I'm glad you have the satisfaction.
At this point,
Because I mean, I think this feeling for you is the equivalent of me watching Kyle Larson spin at Homestead.
pretty much. In fact, almost exactly.
Did you shout yes 4 times uncontrollably?
See, here's the thing. Unlike that, there was no single instance here. It was just Lando slowly not being able to cope with the conditions, while Max is putting in one of the greatest performances of all time. Which he will now demonstrate. Because he is now in the lead.
What's he demonstrating? In front of the class?
Yeah, so Max is now in the lead of the race. Lap 45, fastest lap. Lap 46, team orders from McLaren. Lap 47, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 48, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 49, Max sets the fastest lap. Also lap 49, Perez can't get past either of the V-Carps. Lap 50, Max fastest lap. Lap 54, Perez tries to send a dive bomb on Lawson into turn 1. This does nothing. Lap 55, Perez tries this again. He also does nothing. Actually, this time it does something. It slows him down enough that Hamilton passes him.
That's some dangerous driving, man, he says as it goes by.
Yeah. Mind you, I've broken up the Max fastest laps with Perez sucking. This was not deliberate. This is just what happened in the race. Max recharges his battery and cools down his tires for a couple of laps. Meanwhile, Perez completely and utterly fails to do anything. And then this is where I note that Gasly is now keeping Russell at about a second behind, where he will be for the rest of the race. Also, lap 56, Max fastest lap. Lap 57, Max fastest lap. Lap 58, Max fastest lap. Perez is now stuck behind a Mercedes. Lap 59, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 60, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 62, Max sets the fastest lap. Also, Lando Norris gets asked if he has any more pace by his team. He says he doesn't.
That's kind of humiliating.
Yep. Lap 64, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 65, Max sets the fastest lap. Lap 67, Max sets the fastest lap.
Max's stepmom is like, why can't you be more like Max?
Max set the fastest lap 17 times this race.
Is that a record?
I don't know, but the race was only 69 laps long.
Well, that's why.
Just, like, it is insane.
A fourth of the laps he ran, 25% of his laps were fastest laps.
25% of the laps of the race, in the rain, on inters, in the third or fourth fastest car on the field. He was setting fastest laps, and it was not close. He was in the 120s, everybody else was in the 122s.
That's pretty big, man.
Yep. He started 17th. So, lap 69, Max wins, leading Ocon, followed by Gasly, Russell, Leclerc, Norris. Piastri finished on track here, but he didn't ever serve the penalty from hitting Lawson earlier, so he then gets a retroactive 10-second penalty, putting Tsunoda in front of him, so then it goes Norris, Tsunoda, Piastri, Lawson, Hamilton. P11, Sergio Perez. Fun fact, this is the first time...
Checo.
This is the first time since custom driver numbers have been a thing in Formula 1 that both teammates have finished with their driver number as their position.
Oh!
Yeah.
That just got my Tism bell ringing.
Yeah. It just required Perez to be completely incompetent another weekend.
It's okay. Not many more weekends left, am I right?
He finished 11th in a race where only 15 cars finished.
Ooh.
Mind you, 2 of those cars didn't start the race. He literally got 2 free positions because both of the cars that did not start were in front of him. He started 12th. Two cars didn't start in front of him. His grid position was 12th. That means there were only 9 cars in front of him at the start of the race. He was running in the points at the start of the race. And he finishes 11th. He net lost a position from outside the points.
Oof.
Yeah. That is followed by Behrman, Bottas, Alonso, and then Zhou Guanyu had his most anonymous race ever, which is saying something.
What are you trying to say?
That Zhou Guanyu is a fairly anonymous driver for a team that hasn't mattered in a decade. And yet this was his most anonymous race ever.
Where'd he finish?
15th. Which was last on track. But yeah. So, Max set 17 fastest laps.
Starting from P17.
Starting from P17. And also, another fun fact, because I know you like these weird random statistics, this is the first time that 2 French drivers have been on the podium since 1997.
Nah.
It is also, I believe, the Enstone team's best finish since Alonso's last championship, if I remember correctly. It was either that or Kimi might have had a better weekend. Did Kimi and Grosjean ever get it?
I was gonna say, I thought Grosjean was there when Kimi was 2012ing it.
Yeah, but I don't remember if they ever got a podium together.
You know, Romain Grosjean should try IndyCar. Maybe that'd be a bit easier.
But anyway, either way, it was their best race in over a decade. Or no, what am I saying? I'm an idiot. Alonso was on the podium for Ocon's one, wasn't he?
That's a great question. I don't remember that. Here, I'll help you out. I'll look it up because I feel like I would have heard more about it because I think in 2021 his only podium was Qatar.
Or did he get pipped at the line by Hamilton?
I want to say Hamilton eventually passed Alonso at Rats. What track was that? Hungary?
Yeah, Hungary, not Turkey. What was I saying?
Yes, Alonso was 4th at that race.
But yeah, then
Let me check Qatar really quick.
I was gonna say because there were like they mentioned it in the commentary, but I forgot to write it down. But it was just all sorts of insane driving.
Yeah, it had to have been earlier because I can also look up the 2012 F1 standings to check, but on 21 for sure.
Yeah, but basically, the end result of this whole situation is... Hold on, I think I might have just found... where did it go? I think I just had the record for most fastest laps in one race, but I lost it.
It was not Australia. Let me check that Singapore race. Wait. Oh, it was Abu Dhabi. That's right.
You can tell that an
Nope.
episode gets weird whenever we just start looking up obscure factoids and the like.
Grosjean was not on the podium in Abu Dhabi. We have, wait, let me think. I'm trying to also think of, we had Russell, Hamilton. We've had 7 different winners this year.
Yep.
And I think
believe
the only realistic chance for number 8 would be Perez, but at this point, it's probably not going to happen.
Frankly, I would be kind of surprised if he's even driving in Vegas, honestly.
Vegas could be a decent wild card race with how many straights there are.
I think one of the Ferraris is going to take it.
I think last year... Here, let me check while I'm here at the standings. I think last year was...
Last year was Max over Leclerc.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But there you go. Oh. Are we going to talk about Bottas at all?
See, here's the thing. I was kind of doing a bit with that because, this was the Brazil race, and they replaced him with a Brazilian driver, but they announced it like 4 days after they'd left Brazil. So anyway, Kick Sauber's driver lineup for next year has been announced. And yes, they actually did that. They went to Brazil, they had signed a Brazilian driver, and then announced him after they left Brazil.
That kind of sounds like getting married in Vegas. Like,
it's just, I I want to know what the logic behind that is. And yes, I was, like, that was in my notes as a thing to talk about. Yes, it was deliberate that I was putting it at the very end of this discussion. Just... because, like, seriously, come on. Need I remind you, at one point, the fans literally started cheering for a reserve driver when the main driver showed how much of an idiot he was. I don't know how you mess up a marketing opportunity that bad, especially when you're a team that nobody gives a crap about this year.
Man. I'm just sad to see Bottas leave.
There has been indications that he is being brought on to Mercedes in some role, though not as a driver.
Oh, of course, right as Lewis leaves. No fun reunion.
I just think the funniest possible outcome is that Mercedes brings him on as a brand representative when that was the thing that Lewis was asking for that led to him leaving for Ferrari.
You know, this is kind of like in real life where the guy is pursuing the girl who totally like won't go out with him, but there's this really nice like 6 out of 10 girl who's super nice to him, and as the audience member you're like, go for that girl. Like she's plenty pretty, she loves you, she'll do anything for you. You're going for the wrong girl. This is like Lewis and Valtteri. Like they just love Lewis, and of course there was no way he was going to stay if they weren't good. And now it's like, just go for Valtteri. He still loves you.
Yeah.
Also, I think at this point in their respective careers, Valtteri is kind of more marketable, isn't he?
I think that he is... I don't think anybody just straight up dislikes him.
I was gonna say, I feel like there are definitely a good clan of people who straight up dislike Hamilton, but you're gonna be hard pressed to find someone who just straight up dislikes Bottas.
Yeah, like the worst you'll get from Bottas is like ambivalent, but most people at least like him.
As long as he keeps the mustache and mullet, like, gotta put that face on anything, and people will like at least look at your product. Like, you could put that on like swim gear, and they'll probably buy it.
I mean, considering that Bottas literally did a naked calendar at one point. Him
Oh, he did
modeling.
naked calendar?
Did you not hear about this?
No, I don't usually look up F1 porn.
Yeah, no. Was it last year or the year before? He did a calendar that was, yeah. It was pictures of him from the back. Pictures of him from the back, because he is Finnish, and as such, yeah.
And as such, get it?
But yeah, no, he.
Asked, am I right?
Congratulations, you got the joke. But no, yeah, I do kind of love him. But also, like,
yeah.
it is kind of a part where it's like, I don't think he is the right driver for that team at the moment, almost entirely because I don't think there exists a right driver for that team at the moment. As a reminder, they're the only team that doesn't have any points for this season.
10 wins, 67 podiums, and 20 poles. Kind of a legend, isn't he?
Yep.
I mean, 67 podiums. If you think about it, Fernando Alonso has a little over 100, and he's considered just one of the greatest of all times.
Yep.
But look at this guy, 67 podiums, and everyone's like, he was okay.
Yeah. And yet he's going to finish this season 23rd.
Look, he's in his Kimmy phase. You got to let him live.
Yeah. See, here's the
I
thing.
think we'll.
Sauber's not going to have anyone to kill after this. Because, like, there's no more there's no more retiring Finns on the grid.
Is Zoe leaving after this year as well?
Yeah, both of uh, their drivers have been announced. It's Hulkenberg and what's-his-face next year.
I was Zoe one of the most forgettable drivers of this generation. Not like being mean, but like he kind of did nothing and was very anonymous, like you said earlier. Like he
Yeah,
was
it,
anonymous, the driver.
he is... Because, like, the biggest thing is he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. He got along with everybody, but wasn't, like, a big personality. And so he never got wrapped up in any controversy. But he didn't have, like, the Giovinazzi thing of being best friends with Kimmy. So, yeah, he just, like, if he was a worse, like, he wasn't a bad enough driver to go down as a Latifi type. He just kind of is. Is.
Is Stroll gonna go down as worse than Latifi?
I would argue yes.
I was gonna say, in my personal opinion, yes, but I don't know what the general pop will think.
Just because, if nothing else, whenever other people were showing a potential opportunity for that seat, Latifi was gone.
Latifi also started later in life.
Yep. There's a whole lot of reasons. Latifi also had worse cars generally than Stroll.
I mean, Stroll had the early season 2023 AMR 23, so what excuse does he have?
Yep. He also had the pink Mercedes.
Oh, that's true. Hey, at least prime Sergio Perez was better than Lance Stroll.
The worst part is that is like one of the few drivers you can actually compare him against, and then people are like, "Why is Checo so terrible?" But anyway, we should get into the championship standings. Because at this point, where in the world did my... Oh, yeah. Max Verstappen is at 393 points, having taken maximum available points from the race. Lando Norris. Oh great, this annoying bug has happened on my phone. Give me 1 second. I cannot switch apps right now. You stupid, stupid thing. There we go. Lando Norris is at 331. That is
It's
60.
a championship fight for the ages.
Yeah, that is a 62-point difference. I will remind you, Lando has had the faster car, arguably since Miami, definitely after Spain. This is the widest the championship gap has been all season. This is the widest, not all season, but since before Miami. This is the widest the championship gap has been.
I think it's mostly based on luck, though, so you can't really take that into account.
Lando would need to gain an average of 15.5 points on Max every race, including the sprint. Mind you, the sprint only has 8 points available.
They're saying it's time to get to work.
Here's the thing. That would tie them on points.
And then Max gets the tiebreaker.
And then I believe Max would win the tiebreaker based on number of wins.
Okay.
He needs to, assuming that he wins the sprint, he would need to beat Max by 18 points in the 3 main races.
Wow. That's a lot of winning.
Yeah. For reference, there are 86 points left available for the rest of the season.
I think
That
you're
means-
insinuating something.
That the Drivers' Championship is wrapped up. Because that's what I'm saying. Mind you,
That's what you're saying.
this weekend, McLaren took a sprint win away from Oscar Piastri on team orders. Oscar voluntarily, without arguing, gave up a sprint victory to Lando on the assumption that Lando was actually going to try, and then had to watch this.
Or Oscar.
Yeah. Now, the thing is, the Constructors' Championship standing stayed almost exactly the same. Because McLaren and Ferrari across the weekend scored the same number of points.
I'm still excited though, because I mean it's kind of blown wide open with the races
Vegas,
to go. Ferrari.
Vegas looks like a good track for Ferrari.
Yeah, I that's why I'm kind of like optimistic that Ferrari can keep the momentum going.
I could see a Ferrari 1-2.
Honestly, either or McLaren or Ferrari, it'd be nice to see either one of those guys win. I think Ferrari wants it much worse than McLaren, just kind of by how each team's priorities have, leaned this year. It just seems like Ferrari is much more concerned with the World Constructors Championship, while McLaren's still kind of holding on hope they can get Lando that WDC.
I have to imagine that's over at this point. They're idiots if they try to.
I am on record for saying that if something like this happened at this race, they should probably begin focusing more on the WDC, and we kind of agreed on that point.
I thought they should have started doing it a couple races ago.
Well, I mean, yeah, but definitely, I don't think there's much more question now. It's because you don't want to give up. You want to be a believer, but at the same time, when it's much more obvious that there's a greater chance of winning one of those if you put a little more effort into it than more of a long shot chance to win the, statistically. Oh my gosh.
Max needs to finish 2 of the last 3 races in 7th, and basically, as long as Max finishes 7th or better for the rest of the year, he has won. Guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
That is Lando taking maximum points.
Max, Super Max.
Yeah, mind you, again, 7th or better in the 3rd fastest car.
So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm very much with you now, Eli, that if you want to say it's been time, but also if they didn't believe that, then very much now is the time to just start putting your chips on the table to try to at least get one of those championships this year.
Yeah, that's the because it's like Max doesn't have to try to put the car in its, you know, where it should be.
He consistently puts it above where it should be, so why think it's going to be any different?
And the thing is, he's even said this himself now. He said he doesn't care about winning the championship before Abu Dhabi. All he's going to worry about is just driving consistently for the next few races without any pressure on him. Make sure he finishes in the top 6 each race and walk home with it.
Honestly, that's the way to do it. Kind of like in the NASCAR playoffs, when someone already advances, they're kind of encouraged not to race hard. Why ruin your car? Why spend all that extra money just to do something you're going to do anyway?
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like the only way Lando ends up having an actual like realistic chance is if Max gets too aggressive and crashes out of multiple races.
Yeah, if Max has a couple of bad races, then maybe. And I kind of like Max's strategy of just putting it where he needs to be, because I think a Max giving 90%, 85% will be plenty to put it probably close to the podium. Like 4th, 5th place finishes are definitely in the question.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is it's like I don't. The Mercedes is like the Mercedes can compete with them, but it's too inconsistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so at that point, it's kind of like that is just a guaranteed P5 then.
Yeah. So, yeah, just do it. Just do that. Get her done. See you next year.
Yep.
But I can cope emotionally better with Max winning, because I don't know if you know this, Eli, but my problem with Max is the same problem I have with Kyle Larson, is that I like it if the people who are constantly winning for a team I don't like at least win in a good looking car. And as long as Red Bull has that same annoying livery, I'm probably not going to be happy when they win.
I just hate that this season we saw like no special edition liveries all year. I think McLaren ran a couple, but that's it.
I was gonna say, didn't Red Bull, they were about to run one and then they ceased to because it was gonna take up too much performance or something in that vein?
Yep, Red Bull called it off because they couldn't. Red Bull called off all of their planned special liveries for the year because they didn't want to invest the time and money that it would take to bring them down to a low enough weight to make performance sense.
I can understand that, with the title on the line.
I mean, the title and the budget cap, right? Because like
yeah, for sure.
At the end of the day, it does cost money to run those, to like run the tests, run the numbers, and all that stuff, and that does come out of the budget cap. I get it. It's just, yeah, it kind of sucks, especially because like I like Red Bull's basic livery. I prefer it when it's like gloss or metallic, not the matte thing they've been running the past couple of years.
Oh, definitely, 100%. I can agree with you.
But Red Bull consistently has some of the best special edition liveries of anyone.
Well, that, not to take away from them, but also they're kind of the only team that does too many special edition liveries, so you kind of want it every year.
Yeah. It's like, I will say, the best looking version of the Red Bull was the metallic purple. That is not up for debate. That is just a fact.
That is my fantasy of a car.
But like,
it makes me so happy.
I am also willing to accept metallic blue.
Honestly, anything other than that matte. I mean, I love so many cars in matte. Like, it's just not the right shade. You know,
Yeah,
I feel like,
I don't think blue
yeah,
as the main color works with matte usually.
especially that shade of blue. If it's a light blue, I think it's definitely good and matte. But the darker the color gets in matte, the less
Well,
full
like
the car looks.
the thing is, I think a dark blue can also work in matte, but if it's more of the accent color, because like the Alpha Tauris looked great and they were matte, and that was a really
That
dark
is
blue.
true.
But
That is true. I didn't think about that.
the focus color was white, and then it was there was the contrast there. But that's kind of the thing that the Red Bull's lacking is there's not because like they got the yellow, but that's not like enough of the car to cause a stark contrast.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm definitely on the team of getting a different shade in there.
Yeah, I hope. I'm gonna have to say something which kind of sucks to say because these regulations have developed us some great racing, but there is something fundamentally wrong with the weight aspect of these regulations.
Man, should we get into that on this episode?
I mean, we're already at 2.5 hours, so like
Well,
nobody's gonna want to
be
listen
no
to it
fun-
anyway.
Not to be no fun, Levi, but I do kind of want to wrap this thing up.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll pencil that in for maybe that's what I'll cover in my section of next week, since I won't have any actual racing to talk about.
Yeah. Let's do a special edition Q&A spiritual quest for
Yeah, well,
yourself.
I was gonna say we'll do a bit of a discussion on just how, because like the racing, we've had some of the best racing in Formula One in a long time with these regulations.
Yeah.
See, for example, this Brazil. This Brazil is one of the best races in Formula One history.
Yeah.
There were certain aspects of this regulation cycle that did drop the ball. So, next week.
There's a reason there's black car after black car.
Yeah. Next week, I'll talk about that. While Levi talks about the NASCAR Championship.
All three of them, because I'm a nerd.
Yep, because he's a nerd, and let's be real, you're not going to spend much. I'm not going to have enough stuff to talk about with that to fill a half an hour. And so it's going to, the truck series is what's going to take up the rest of that half hour, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of funny because you don't even know. We're definitely going to talk about it next week, but yeah, I mean, because with all the controversy from last year's championship, there's definitely some stuff to talk about.
Yeah. So, don't know when we'll record that, but we will at some point next week. Until then, I've been Eli. He has been Levi. We have had one of the greatest weekends in racing history. It's all downhill from here. Goodbye.